Join us in studio this afternoon. Very pleased to have with us from I Am Created Equal, Laura Carno, who flew all the way out from Colorado just to make this appearance.
Yes, I heard Brad Thor was going to be here.
Right, and then we lied to you.
You lied to me.
It's via Skype. I know. I'm so sorry. Apologies for that.
It's all good.
You thought you were going to be hanging out with Brad in the green room.
Yes.
No. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
And so what brings you out to D.C., if I might ask?
Sure. So I was, there's a group of interns in the political world that have an educational program, and I came out to talk to them about messaging. So
very cool.
So while I was here, I booked some other meetings, including seeing if you all were around.
And here we are.
I know.
So in your messaging, because your messaging with I Am Created Equal was really very simple, right? It was help me out here. It was, don't you dare tell me how to defend myself.
Right. In the messaging that we used in the recalls, and actually in the gun control debates before the recalls, we had so much messaging out there on Second Amendment. It's the obvious messaging when we're talking about that. But that messaging doesn't get through to people who don't really like politics much. And, especially for women who don't like politics. But women are independent and they want to take care of themselves. And so don't you dare tell me how to defend myself was, it hit the ball out of the park.
All right. And that message, again, was directed at a variety of people, right?
Sure.
Basically directed at anybody who was trying to tell you how to defend yourself. Among those, though, would be the former mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg.
Yes.
Who had some wonderful things to say about your part of Colorado recently.
Yes, he's a peach. Well, and, the particular part of Colorado Springs, which I don't know, there's 600,000 or so people in the Colorado Springs metro area where roads exist. And but that particular district, it's one of the nicer districts. You'll find some of the nicer restaurants in that area, and it either has the Broadmoor Hotel in it or it just is just adjacent to that district. But it's a very nice area, and he just has no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, here's the quote again. The NRA went after 2 or 3 state senators in a part of Colorado where I don't think there are roads. It's as far rural as you can get. And yes, they lost elections. I'm sorry for that. We tried to help them. So there's so much wrong with this. This was, again, a grassroots effort that was started by people like yourself and Tim Knight and Victor Head and I was going to say a lot of other folks, but really a few other folks. And when the ball had been rolling, when people saw that you were successful, that these initiatives were going to happen, that there was this, again, real grassroots movement that was taking place, yeah, you saw people, including the NRA, come in and say, hey, how can we help you? But the NRA didn't take the lead on these recalls. That's rewriting history. We've talked about the part of Colorado where you don't think there's roads. But this fascinates me. Yes, they lost recall elections. I'm sorry for that. We tried to help them. Well, Laura, look, I mean, if you're an anti-gun politician, or if you're a politician and Bloomberg says, listen, vote our way, and we're going to help you. So what?
Right.
You're going to help me.
Right. And what was interesting is after the recall, after all of the stories that you all covered, we had another election in November that included this $1 billion tax increase. Bloomberg put $1 million into that, too, and it failed 66-33. And so he's not just butting in on guns, he's butting in on other things. And Colorado, I think because of the recalls, is why that amendment for the $1 billion tax increase failed so miserably, because we talked about that. What is Bloomberg doing here again?
Right.
Hasn't he had enough?
So, between Governor Hickenlooper's comments to the sheriff and then this, which is now being reported again in the Colorado media, Bob Beaupre, the Republican gubernatorial candidate, is talking about this. This is, I think, flared up once again. I'll say that I still think that gun control never went away as an issue for a lot of people in Colorado, but it gives the media reason to cover this again.
Right. And CompleteColorado.com, which is a Colorado-based website similar to Drudge, it's an aggregator for Colorado, but they also do investigative reporting. They did open records requests on Bloomberg and on Hickenlooper on both of their phone records to show precisely when, during the gun control debates, Hickenlooper and Bloomberg were talking. Now, if you're an independent mayor, or excuse me, an independent governor of your state, why would you be talking to a mayor from another state unless there was something nefarious about it? And so I'm happy that Bob Beaupre is going after this relationship, because I don't think it's an innocent relationship. I think it's meant to harm the freedoms of Coloradans.
How's this playing well, or how's this playing in Colorado for Governor Hickenlooper?
So before the Republicans had their primary, there was concern if any one of the Republican candidates would be able to even pull even with Hickenlooper, because, when they do the polling and it says if it was a 1-to-1 match between any one of these four people, how would that look for the matchup? And as soon as the primary was over and Bob Beaupre was the candidate or the nominee, and then the sheriff's thing happened, it's an even race right now. And because Hickenlooper ran as a pro-business, pro-energy governor, and everything's gone downhill from there, people on my side, the we don't want John Hickenlooper to be our governor again side, are pretty optimistic.
Is that translating into energy, into volunteering, into again, some of what we saw during the recall elections?
Yeah, I'm not on the campaign side, so I'm not sure. From a social media excitement standpoint, it sure feels that way. Interesting.
President Obama went to Colorado, shoot some pool with Governor Hickenlooper, avoid the border, I guess. And it seems like this was a really interesting trip because, again, the president says he's not going to go to the border because, just be a photo op, and he doesn't do photo ops.
Right.
But there are a lot of politicians in Colorado. I mean, I guess I don't know if you give Hickenlooper credit for actually, appearing with Barack Obama, but Mark Udall has had better things to do while Barack Obama's there in Colorado.
I think he was washing his hair or something. Yeah, and what was interesting is that he had Senator Udall, our incumbent, who's up for re-election, had originally said that he wouldn't be able to be at the public events, but he would be at the closed to the media fundraiser that was going to help Senator Udall's campaign. And then at the last minute, he needed to stay in Washington for a very important vote, which didn't look that important on the outside, and skipped the fundraiser altogether that was raising money for him. So it's just very interesting optics. You wonder what's going on around the conference room table at Udall for Colorado to make those decisions.
Yeah, and again, a year ago, we had people like John Morris, again, before the vote was taken, the former Senate president, John Hickenlooper, Joe Biden, all these folks saying, look, if you stand with us on these gun control issues, they're going to love you. They're going to have parades for you. They're going to build statues for you. It's going to be amazing. And here we are a year later. I'm curious, have you seen any politician in Colorado who's running for re-election running on, I voted for these gun control bills?
Nothing. Even the state reps who did appear with Obama yesterday, the reps and the senators, in very, very, very safe Democrat districts, I haven't seen them saying, I voted for the gun control bills. No, just nobody's talking about it on that side. On the side of the pro-gun side, even some Democrats who are pro-gun, because Colorado does have pro-gun Democrats.
Right.
We do see some, I fought for you. People are really talking about that because it's still an issue. People are still concerned about it.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, for a lot of reasons. In fact, I think this goes beyond, I think it has moved beyond just a gun control issue. I think now it's, I think, to Governor Hickenlooper's detriment, I think a lot of this is now a referendum on John Hickenlooper, on the believability of a governor who would appear to tailor what he says to the group that he's talking to.
Right, and it also has the feel of politicians are not kings. And when you have something like what happened last year, where Senator Morse kept people from being able to come in and testify, Senator Angela Herron from Pueblo, who was the other one recalled, she told people at public town halls, we're not talking about the gun control bills, we're talking about the mortgage bill, which nobody cared about. And so there's that sort of, the thing that I Am Created Equal says, that, we're equal to the politicians, they're not above us, and politicians are not kings. And so there's that feel. When you look at what Hickenlooper said to the sheriffs, well, I didn't know that the sheriffs wanted to talk to me. I didn't know that this was going to be such a big deal.
Right.
How did you not know? We were in the Capitol. We were driving around honking for the people who couldn't get in. So it's just this complete tone deafness from politicians at many, many levels. So
yeah, and you're right about that. And I think again that was such a big driver to get people like Victor and Tim involved in these recalls.
Right.
They didn't like the way they were treated
right.
by their elected officials. And this is the time where, again, voters all across the state of Colorado have an opportunity to say, hey, we didn't like how this went down last year.
Right. And one of the state reps that they started a recall initiative against, but they didn't get the signatures in Durango. There is a group coming up that is bound and determined to educate people on, the guy's name is Mike McLaughlin, who also ran as a guy who I'm pro Second Amendment, still says it on his website, but he voted for all the gun control bills. And Durango, that district includes some rural areas. Firearms are a way of life in their work, not just from a self-defense standpoint. Mm-hmm. And they're pretty ticked off, so they're going after him to educate voters on what he did and his betrayal.
So is this going to be one of the big issues, you think, in Colorado this election year?
There are a couple. I mean, we still have big energy issues. There are fracking bans, local control initiatives. People in Colorado are concerned about federal issues, and we have the U.S. Senate race. So there's Obamacare and there's Keystone Pipeline. So there are many issues. Guns will be among them.
Okay. All right. Hopefully one of the big issues, I think. Again, it's been fascinating watching and covering what's been going on in Colorado from the get-go here, and to see how this is going to play out yet. I don't think the story is finished being written yet. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. And just to be clear on the gun issue, on state legislative races mm-hmm. and the gubernatorial race, because those are the positions that can undo the gun control bills, guns will be the issue there.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the makeup if we can,
sure.
Because the state Senate very closely divided, right? In fact, that was why when Senator Evie Hudak was facing a recall, she resigned
right.
rather than go through the recall process, likely lose, which would have then given the state Senate Republicans control of the state
Correct.
Senate.
It's just a one-vote margin in favor of the Democrats right now in the state Senate. And remember, there are pro-gun Democrats, mm-hmm. so there is not a gun control majority in the Senate. Since the recalls.
What about the House side?
I'm going to say there's a handful difference, 6 or 7 in Democrat control, and I haven't followed the House side enough to know, do we stand a chance to take it back? But this rep in Durango's on that House side, so there are definitely a lot of targeted races that I know that the Republicans are looking at.
Okay. And I would say, look, I mean, even a couple of months ago, the conventional wisdom in Colorado was, well, Governor Hickenlooper is expected to easily win a second term. I mean, right. I saw these phrases, easily win a second term. Right. Apparently, this is based on one poll that was done by Quinnipiac, and then we saw the Rasmussen Reports poll that came out a few weeks ago showing the race tied. Is the media still covering this as if it's almost a foregone conclusion that John Hickenlooper is going to win?
No, the local media is not covering it that way anymore, not since the sheriff's meeting, where Governor Hickenlooper didn't know he was being taped. And I don't know what I hate more about that he didn't know he was being taped. You're the governor. You're always being taped.
Right.
Or that he would have said something different had he known.
Yeah.
It's bothersome either way.
That's, and it's I've seen the governor do, 2 of these interviews where he's tried to explain himself. And I have to say, I mean, I understand you as a reporter, you want to let the interview subject speak, but there's no problem pushing back a little bit when
right.
especially when you're told absolute nonsense. When Governor Hickenlooper tried to explain lying to the state sheriffs, and he said what he told the state sheriffs was, let's be clear, I never met Mayor Bloomberg. I know that was reported in the press, but just for the record, he said. And then he went on to say, I met him when he was mayor. I mean, he went out of his way to say, I didn't meet with him on these issues. Lie.
Right.
And then his response was, well, what I was trying to tell him was that I had already made up my mind on these issues before I talked to Mayor Bloomberg. I didn't see any reporter actually just push back and say, Governor, come on, here's what you told the sheriffs. Here's what you're telling me now. How are these two things anywhere close to this?
Yeah, and I think you're seeing a little bit different coverage on TV, social media, print. There's probably a little bit different coverage. And I think he's still trying to pull off this sort of aw shucks, homespun kind of affability, which that's what got him elected. One of his initial election commercials, it showed him showering in a full business suit saying, we're going to keep this political campaign clean. And I mean, just sort of this goofy, image. And I think he's still trying to play that, and it's just not working anymore. And the polls are showing that.
How will playing pool with President Obama go over well, or go over in Colorado?
I think the fact that everybody ran out of town shows you that there's probably some polling, and I haven't seen any. I'm solving for X here.
Okay.
That there must be polling that said, please disconnect yourself from the president. That's the only reason I can think that would happen. I'm not sure, because Hickenlooper originally said that he was busy as well at an event in Colorado Springs, so perhaps he ran up for the pool game, but I don't know that that's a good thing at all for the governor to be seen with a president that frankly people aren't taking seriously on any of the issues.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We talk about the optics. Well, it'd be one thing if it was, the president and Governor Hickenlooper meeting in some, boardroom somewhere.
Right.
But the president, I don't know what the heck the president's advisors were thinking. Let's go shoot pool and take pictures. But you're right. If one of the knocks on Hickenlooper right now is that he too is sort of an unserious guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who's the Democrat congressman from Texas? Is that Cuellar?
Henry Cuellar. Yeah.
What guts to come out against the president of his party and say, I don't like you playing pool and drinking beer when we have this crisis on the border that you won't even come visit. And he got the nasty gram from the White House telling him to be quiet, and thumbed his nose at them. So you have to appreciate the guts of doing what's right.
Yeah, wonder if Governor Hickenlooper would hang out with Representative Cuellar at all. Invite him over for a beer and some pool.
Right, exactly.
All right, well, listen, Laura, I appreciate you coming in the studio while you're here in D.C. It's great to see you.
Absolutely.
And I know we'll be talking again very soon.
Sounds great.